Morning. This is Father Jamie. I'm here on my pontoon boat this morning, floating on my lake. And as promised to you all, if you follow me on Facebook, I said I was going to do a little reflection today about the end times. You know, a lot of people have been asking me over the last few weeks since this COVID stuff started. They've been asking, excuse me, are we in the end times? You know, is this virus part of the end times and yada, yada, yada. And then I've been watching some YouTubers talking about something called the warning, and, you know, some prophetess, you know, there's just a lot of, you know, the 3 days of darkness and blah, blah, blah. All right, y'all, we're going to dive into this. So first, do I think that we're in the end times? It is my personal opinion and reflection that no, we are not in the end times yet. Why do I say that? Well, I want us to look at the bigger picture. First, people have been saying, oh, we're in the end times, we're in the end times. People have been saying that since the early church. When Mount Vesuvius erupted in 79 AD, people said, oh, it's the end times, this is a sign of the end times. And that was one little eruption. There are 20-some volcanoes that are erupting simultaneously around the world at any given time, sometimes more than that. And hundreds more we never know about because they're erupting under the surface of the ocean. Today, we have the ability through the news media to know about a natural disaster in real time as it is happening. Just a century ago, you may not have known about it until weeks later. And so now, since we're aware of all this stuff as it happens, we have people saying, oh, it's the end times, look at all this. No, the earth is doing what the earth does on its normal cycle. And we just weren't aware of it because we didn't have access to it, plain and simple. Let me give you another illustration. I love volcanoes. I love geology. And so I know basically how our earth behaves because I've been just on the side as a little hobby. You know, I have a lava collection and I keep up with all this stuff as I'm able. So, you know, if Mount St. Helens were to erupt today and do another 1980 size eruption, you know, with the size as it was in 1980, equivalent to 500 atomic bombs, an ash plume rising, you know, 12 miles or more into the sky, I'm not going to get excited if that happens today. Now, if Mount Hood, Mount Baker, Mount Shasta, Lassen, if all of those Cascade volcanoes were to simultaneously go off at the same time, then I might get a little excited. And if while that is going on, you know, other volcanoes in long lines all start going off and we start having, you know, just absolute horrendous earthquakes all around the world, all at the same time, hurricanes covering, you know, states and part of continents and whatnot, you know, all this, we have no clue what this earth is capable of through the power of God. We haven't seen anything yet. So the book Revelation says there will be increases of natural disasters and stuff. We have not seen that yet. We've only seen what Earth does on a daily basis. So don't get excited. Second of all, when it comes to some of these people talking about, you know, 3 days of darkness, blah, 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 Remember, those are private revelations, and they don't have the full support of the church. We get so tied up in some of these things, and who knows, there could be some truth in it. I'm not going to totally disclaim it. But I'm going to say there's nothing to worry about as long as you're going to Mass every Sunday, going to confession regularly, and believing in all that the church teaches and following and proclaiming the gospel. Don't worry about this stuff. Live a Christian life. You know, people get tore up about all this, and it's not that easy to live a Christian. It's pretty easy to live a Christian life. Just follow the basics. Then you don't have to worry about all this other stuff. If you have strong faith, trust God, whatever happens will happen. And it'll be okay. I know we got a lot of difficulties going on right now, especially with all this race business and political drama and just on and on and on. But we need to pray. We need to pray. And instead of chasing conspiracies and every little private revelation we can down rabbit holes, go to Mass every day. Pray the Liturgy of the Hours. Pray the Rosary every day. Go to confession every month. At the bare minimum, go to Mass every Sunday and go to confession once a year. That's what the church calls us to do, at the bare minimum. So, finally, I don't think we're in the end times, but I do think God is calling us to something greater. I think He is trying to get our attention. This is something else I'm going to say. When all this COVID stuff started, the first thing that happened was we could not receive from the chalice. And then public Mass was taken away from us altogether. And of course, I know some of y'all are going to say, well, you're the priest. You can have Mass every day and blah, blah, blah. You all don't know what it's like to be the priest and to have Mass in an empty church. I was called to give Jesus to His people, not to myself. It's been hard for me, just as much as it has been the laity. So, no chalice, then no Mass. And all we had was the ability to go to Eucharistic... I can't talk. Haven't been out of bed too long. All we had left was the ability to go to Eucharistic adoration and then our private prayer at home. Just recently we were told that over half of, quote, Catholics don't believe in the real presence of Jesus in the Eucharist. He's trying to get our attention. We're not in the end times, but I think He's trying to get our attention. We need to focus on the real presence in the Eucharist, the Blessed Sacrament. I think that's what He was trying to tell us during this time when all we could do was adore Him in His presence. And I think He's calling all of us, not just the conservatives, not just the liberals, because what happened as soon as a lot of us were able to go back to Mass again, we still can't receive from the chalice, and we can't receive on the tongue. So, I think God's trying to speak to all of us. And He's trying to get all of us to realize we all need to basically believe in His presence in the Eucharist. And I challenge all of us, as I said in my Corpus Christi homily over the weekend, I challenge all of us to maybe add to our Eucharistic devotion. If you don't receive on the tongue, when we're able to receive on the tongue again, I challenge you to think about doing that. I also, those of you who receive on the tongue, I challenge you to maybe receive from the chalice every once in a while. May we do our best to love God, follow His gospel, and proclaim it. Adoremus in aeternum sanctissimum sacramentum. We adore the Blessed Sacrament eternally forever. Amen.